Commander Yuna stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching her homeworld burn. The blue and green planet that had been home to billions of Thalosians was now covered in gray smoke and orange flames. The harvesters had come 3 days ago, and nothing could stop them. Her scales, normally a beautiful blue-green color, had turned dark with stress. Around her, the bridge crew worked silently. Everyone knew they had already lost. The question now was how many could escape. "Commander, the evacuation fleet is ready," her second officer reported. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. 847 million civilians aboard transport ships. They're waiting for your order." Yuna looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed harvester drones spreading across the planet like a disease. These machines were ancient, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. They consumed everything: metal, stone, organic matter. Nothing was left behind. They would strip the planet down to its core, then move to the next world. "Give the order," Yuna said quietly. "All ships, jump to rally point 7. The fleet began to move. Thousands of ships, from massive colony transports to small personal vessels, all fleeing together. Behind them, the harvesters didn't even pause. They didn't chase refugees. They only harvested. 2 weeks later, the Thalosian fleet limped into Coalition space. They had sent distress calls to every member species. The responses had been disappointing. The Vrelians said their fleet was needed for home defense. The Korthan Empire sent sympathy but no ships. The Federation of Tall Ones offered humanitarian supplies but no military support. One by one, every species in the Galactic Coalition found reasons not to help. Ambassador Deho sat in the command ship's meeting room, his old scales gray with age and worry. He had served the Coalition for 60 years. He had believed in it. Now he understood the truth. When danger came, everyone looked after themselves first. "There is one option left," Deho said to the assembled fleet commanders. "The humans." The room went silent. Commander Yuna leaned forward. "The humans? They've only been in space for 200 years. They're still considered a junior species." "Yes," Deho agreed. "And they keep weapons that other species banned centuries ago. They maintain warships designed for total warfare. The Coalition calls them aggressive and primitive." "Are they?" another commander asked. Deho's scales flickered with uncertain colors. "I don't know. I met human diplomats once, many years ago. They were intense, emotional. They laughed and cried in the same meeting. But they were also kind. When the Belkarian drought happened, humans sent food without being asked." Yuna studied the star maps. Human space was at the edge of Coalition territory. It would take 3 days to reach their borders. 3 days while the harvesters followed their trail, consuming every outpost and station in their path. "We have no other choice," Yuna decided. "Set course for human space." The journey was terrible. Every few hours, rear sensors detected harvester scouts. They were being followed. The drones were learning their route, reporting back to the main fleet. Soon, the harvest ships would come. Children cried in the refugee transports. Food was running low. The ships had been designed for short evacuations, not extended flights. Families huddled together, sharing warmth and hope that grew thinner each day. Young Bora pressed her face against a viewport, watching the stars. She was only 7 years old. She didn't understand why they had to leave home. Her parents tried to explain about the machines, but it didn't make sense. Nothing made sense anymore. On the command ship, Yuna barely slept. She reviewed what little information existed about humans. They were from a world called Earth, a violent planet with extreme weather and dangerous animals. They had nearly destroyed themselves with weapons before reaching space. They were emotional, unpredictable, and surprisingly creative. "Why would they help us?" her second officer asked. "What do we have that humans want?" "Nothing," Yuna admitted. "We have nothing to offer them. We can only ask. On the third day, they reached the border of human space. A small space station marked the boundary. It was called First Contact Station Meridian. It looked basic compared to Coalition stations, but it was well armed. Yuna opened all communication channels. She spoke slowly, using simple galactic standard language. This is Commander Yuna of the Thalosian refugee fleet. We are 847 million souls fleeing the Harvester invasion. The Galactic Coalition has refused military assistance. We have nowhere else to go. We beg for help. The humans are our last hope. She stopped transmitting and waited. Around her, the bridge was silent. In the refugee ships, families held each other. Ambassador Deho closed his eyes and prayed to gods he wasn't sure existed. Minutes passed, then hours. Maybe humans didn't care either. Maybe this was where the Thalosian species would end. Then the comm system crackled to life. A human voice, female, speaking with an accent Yuna didn't recognize. This is Captain Hyun of the UHSF Indomitable. We received your distress call. We're on our way. Hold your position and transmit all tactical data about the harvesters. No one gets left behind. Yuna's scales flashed bright blue with hope. Around her, the bridge crew started crying. In the refugee ships, people heard the message and embraced each other. They answered, someone whispered. The humans answered. Transmit everything we have on the harvesters, Yuna ordered, and send a message to Captain Hyun. Tell her the Thalosian people will never forget this. Ambassador Deho opened his eyes. He was crying too. Perhaps I was wrong about the coalition, he said softly. Perhaps compassion isn't dead in the galaxy. Perhaps it just needed someone brave enough to show it. On the view screen, new contacts appeared. Human ships, moving fast, heading directly toward them. They weren't running away. They were running toward the danger. For the first time in weeks, Commander Yuna allowed herself to hope. The UHSF Indomitable arrived 18 hours later. It wasn't alone. Behind Captain Hyun's ship came 11 more human warships, their hulls painted with strange symbols and numbers. To Thalosian eyes, the ships looked brutal and unrefined. Where Coalition vessels were smooth and elegant, human ships had sharp angles and exposed weapon batteries. Commander Yuna watched them form a defensive sphere around the refugee fleet. She had never seen military vessels move with such purpose. Every ship knew exactly where to go, sliding into position like pieces of a puzzle. Commander, we're receiving a communication request from Admiral Ji-won, her comm officer reported. She's asking to meet in person. An admiral came personally? Yuna's scales flickered with surprise. In Coalition forces, admirals stayed far from danger, coordinating from safe headquarters. Prepare the diplomatic bay. Admiral Ji-won was shorter than Yuna expected. Most humans were smaller than Thalosians, but this woman had a presence that filled the room. Her uniform was neat, her gray hair cut short, and her eyes were sharp and alert. Behind her stood Captain Hyun and another human in a white coat. Commander Yuna, Ji-won said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. I'm Admiral Ji-won, 3rd Fleet. This is Captain Hyun and Dr. Minho, our xenobiology specialist. Yuna carefully touched the Admiral's hand, trying to mimic the gesture. Thank you for coming, Admiral. I must be honest with you. We have nothing to offer in payment. The Thalosian government has fallen. Our economy is destroyed. We can only offer our gratitude. Admiral Ji-won's face did something strange. The corners of her mouth turned up. Humans called it smiling, Yuna remembered. Commander, we didn't come here for payment. We came because you needed help. Now, I have one question for you. Where do the harvesters need to be hit and how hard? Yuna stared at her. You're asking for tactical data? You're not here to negotiate terms? Terms? Captain Hyun looked confused. Commander, you sent a distress call. People are dying. What is there to negotiate? Dr. Minho stepped forward. Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to board the refugee ships. We have medical supplies and our doctor teams are ready to help. You brought medical teams? Yuna couldn't understand this. You came prepared for humanitarian work and military action? Of course, Jiwan said simply. What did you think we would do? Ambassador Daiho, who had been silent until now, spoke. His voice was thick with emotion. Every other species in the coalition found reasons not to help. They sent sympathies and small amounts of supplies, but no military support. They said it was too dangerous, that they needed to protect their own territory first. Admiral Jiwan's expression hardened. Then they forgot something important. Today it's your people running. Tomorrow it could be theirs. We learned that lesson the hard way, back on Earth. When refugees come to your door, you open it, because someday you might be the one knocking. Over the next week, Yuna watched humans work with incredible energy. Dr. Minho and his medical teams moved through the refugee ships, treating injuries and illnesses. They brought food, clean water, and basic supplies. They asked for nothing in return. Human engineers arrived on Thalosian military vessels, studying their weapons and shields. Instead of keeping their technology secret, the humans shared everything. They showed Thalosian crews how to upgrade their ships with human-designed weapons. This is a railgun, a human engineer named Soman explained to a Thalosian weapons officer. It's old technology for us, but it's reliable. Simple physics, magnetic acceleration, no complex energy systems to fail, very effective against harvester armor. You're giving this to us? The Thalosian asked in disbelief. Soman shrugged. You need weapons to defend yourselves. We have plenty. Why wouldn't we share? Yuna found herself working closely with Captain Hyun, planning defensive strategies. The human captain had a direct way of speaking that Yuna appreciated. The harvesters adapt quickly, Hyun explained, studying the tactical data. Every battle they learn. They'll analyze how we fight and develop counters, so we can't use the same tactics twice. How do you fight an enemy that learns and adapts? Yuna asked. Hyun smiled grimly. We learn faster, and we're willing to try crazy things they won't expect. That's humanity's advantage. We're unpredictable. One day, Dr. Minho brought a young Thalosian to the command ship. It was Bora, the little girl who had been watching the stars. She looked healthier now, her scales bright again. Bora wanted to thank you personally, Commander, Minho said gently. The child looked up at Yuna with big eyes. Thank you for saving us. The human doctor gave me medicine. He said I was very brave. Yuna knelt down. You are brave, little one. All of our people are brave. Bora turned to Dr. Minho. Why are humans helping us? My mother said we have nothing to give you. Minho crouched beside her. Because it's the right thing to do. When someone needs help, you help them. That's all. But what if the bad machines come for you? Bora asked. What if you get hurt? Then we get hurt, Minho said simply. But we'll get hurt trying to do something good. That's better than being safe while doing nothing. The child thought about this, then hugged the doctor. Minho looked surprised, then hugged her back. Yuna saw tears in the human's eyes. That night, Yuna stood on the bridge, watching human ships patrol the perimeter. Admiral Jiwan stood beside her. Why do you do this? Yuna asked. Captain Hyun said humans were almost destroyed by your own violence once. You learned to control it. You built a peaceful society. Why risk war again? Jiwan was quiet for a moment. There's a story from Earth, from before we reached the stars. A group of people were fleeing death. They came to another country's border, asking for safety. That country turned them away, sent them back to die. Later, everyone said never again. But it kept happening. Different people, different places, same story. Refugees asking for help, nations finding reasons to say no. She turned to look at Yuna directly. When we finally united Earth and went to space, we made a promise. We would never be the ones who turned away. We would never find reasons to say no, because we remember what it's like to be desperate and afraid. We remember what it's like when no one helps. The coalition forgot that lesson, Yuna said. Maybe, Jiwon agreed. Or maybe they never learned it. But they'll see us now. They'll see humans keeping their promise. Maybe some of them will remember what compassion looks like. Alarms suddenly blared. The sensor officer called out, "Admiral! Harvester scouts detected! They've found us!" Jiwon's expression changed instantly, becoming hard and focused. "Battle stations! All ships, defensive formation! Commander Yuna, get your people ready! This is about to get ugly!" Yuna watched as the human ships moved into attack positions. For the first time in her life, she understood something about humanity. They weren't just willing to fight, they were eager to. Not because they loved violence, but because they had found something worth fighting for. Someone else's children, someone else's future, someone else's hope. The humans had answered the call. Now they would pay the price for their compassion, and they would do it without hesitation. The first battle happened at the Korvax Belt, an asteroid field 3 days from the refugee fleet's position. Admiral Jiwon chose to fight there deliberately. The asteroids would limit the Harvester's ability to surround them. Commander Yuna watched from her ship as human vessels moved into position. They didn't form the defensive lines she expected. Instead, they spread out, using the asteroids as cover, creating ambush points. "Harvester fleet entering scanner range," the sensor officer reported. 37 harvest ships, 342 drone fighters. The numbers were terrible. The human fleet had only 12 capital ships and maybe 200 fighters. They were outnumbered badly. Captain Hyun's voice came over the command channel. "All ships, remember the plan. Hit hard, move fast, don't let them adapt. For humanity, for the Thalosians, for everyone who comes after us." The battle began suddenly. Human fighters burst from behind asteroids, firing missiles and railgun rounds at close range. They targeted the Harvester communication nodes, trying to disrupt the enemy's coordination. It was aggressive and reckless and completely unexpected. Harvester drones tried to form their usual response pattern, but human pilots were already somewhere else, attacking from a new angle. They flew in ways that seemed impossible, pulling turns that should have killed them from the force. "Their pilots are insane," Yuna's second officer whispered. "They're taking risks that would kill our pilots." "No," Yuna said, understanding dawning. "Their ships are built for it, and their bodies can survive forces that would crush us. They built everything around being able to take punishment. But even with surprise and aggression, the numbers were against them. Harvester ships began adapting, learning the patterns. Human fighters started exploding under focused fire. Then something happened that made Yuna's blood run cold. A Thalosian colony ship, straggling behind the main refugee fleet, came under attack by a group of Harvester drones that had broken through the perimeter. The ship had 12,000 civilians aboard. It was defenseless. The UHSF Resolute, a heavy cruiser, was closest. Captain Junho commanded that ship. Yuna heard him on the comm channel. "All crew, this is the captain. There's a refugee ship that's about to die. We can save them, but the Resolute won't survive. I'm not ordering anyone to stay. If you want to evacuate, you have 3 minutes. For everyone else, it's been an honor." Yuna pulled up the Resolute's internal cameras. The human crew didn't evacuate. They ran to their stations. The Resolute accelerated, putting itself between the Harvester drones and the colony ship. It opened fire with everything, buying time for the refugees to escape. Harvester weapons tore into the human ship. Compartments exploded. The hull breached in dozens of places. "Colony ship is clear," someone reported on the command channel. The Resolute's reactor went critical. The explosion was bright enough to blind sensors for a few seconds. When the glare faded, the human ship was gone. So were the Harvester drones. 4,000 humans had died in seconds. They hadn't hesitated. They hadn't even questioned it. On Earth, in the Human Council chambers, politician Jamin stood before the assembly. "This is madness. We've lost thousands of our people for aliens who might never repay us. We need to bring our fleet home before this gets worse." Admiral Jiwon, participating by hologram from her flagship, responded coldly. "Council member Jamin, we made a promise. Humanity keeps its promises. If we run now, we tell the entire galaxy that human words mean nothing, that our compassion has a price tag. I won't do that. My fleet won't do that." "And how many more ships will we lose?" Jamin demanded. "How many more families will receive death notifications?" "As many as it takes," Jiwon said flatly. "We knew the cost when we came. Everyone here volunteered. No one was forced. We stay until this is finished." The council voted. By a narrow margin, the fleet was allowed to remain. Back in the battle zone, Yuna watched human pilots do something that shouldn't be possible. When their weapons ran out, when their ships were too damaged to continue, they rammed into harvester command nodes. Deliberate suicide attacks that took out critical enemy vessels. A Thalosian pilot named Nari was flying alongside a human squadron when she saw it happen. The human pilot's name was Kangmin. His fighter's weapons were empty, his engines damaged. A harvester command ship was coordinating an attack on a group of refugee transports. "This is Kangmin," he said over the comm, his voice calm. "I'm out of options, but not out of choices. Tell my family I love them. Tell the refugees they're worth it." His fighter accelerated, slamming into the command ship's bridge at full speed. The command ship lost control and collided with two other harvester vessels. Nari couldn't speak. She just stared at where the human fighter had been. On the ground, things were even worse. A mining station with 200 Thalosian civilians had been cut off by harvester ground forces. They were trapped, and orbital bombardment couldn't help without killing the civilians. Specialist Taewon led a team of 30 human marines down to the surface. They fought through harvester drones in close combat, using explosives and determination to clear a path. The battle lasted 14 hours. When the evacuation ship landed, all 200 Thalosians were alive. 8 humans came back with them. 22 had died holding the line. One Marine, bleeding from multiple wounds, was asked why he did it. He looked confused by the question. "They needed help," he said simply. "What else were we supposed to do?" Dr. Minho was working 20-hour days in the refugee ships. He had discovered something important. The harvesters used a central coordination signal to direct their forces. If that signal was disrupted, the drones would become confused, easy to destroy. But the signal came from the harvester mothership, deep in their territory. To disrupt it, someone would need to get inside the mothership and plant a jamming device. The jamming device needed to be placed precisely, which meant a team would need to go in person. It was a suicide mission. The mothership would be heavily defended. Even if the team succeeded, they probably wouldn't escape. "We need volunteers," Admiral Jiwon said in a meeting with her captains and Commander Yuna. Every human in the room raised their hand. Yuna stared at them in disbelief. They all knew it was suicide. They volunteered anyway. "Admiral, I should lead the mission," Captain Hyun said. "I've studied the mothership's layout more than anyone." "No," Jiwon said. "I'll lead it myself. I'm not sending people to die while I stay safe." Commander Yuna stood up. "Wait. Both of you wait. Admiral Jiwon, if you die, who leads your fleet?" "Captain Yun, your crew needs you. I understand human honor now. I understand sacrifice. But you need to understand something too. You've taught us what it means to be brave. You've shown us that protecting others matters more than protecting yourself. The Thalosians will not sit back and watch humans die alone. Not anymore." She turned to face Jawan directly. "We will join your assault. We will fight beside you. And if someone needs to stay behind, if someone needs to sacrifice themselves, it won't be just humans. We've learned from you. Now let us prove we learned well." Admiral Jiwon looked at Commander Yuna for a long moment. Then she nodded. Together, then. We plan this assault together. Humans and Thalosians, brothers and sisters in arms. How long until we're ready? Yuna asked. 2 days, Jiwon said. We'll need 12 ships, 3,000 volunteers, 1 mission. We either break the Harvester fleet or we die trying. That night, Yuna walked through her ship's corridors. She passed Thalosian crew members who nodded to her with respect. They knew what was coming. They weren't afraid, or if they were, they hid it well. She found young Bora in the medical bay being checked by Dr. Minho. The child looked up at her. Are you going to fight the bad machines? Bora asked. Yes, Yuna said honestly. Will you come back? Yuna knelt down. I don't know, but I'm going to try very hard. Dr. Minho will take care of you if I don't. Bora hugged her. The humans are brave. You're brave too. I want to be brave like you when I grow up. Yuna held the child close. This was why they fought. This was why humans had answered the call. Not for glory or power or payment. For children like Bora who deserved a future. Whatever the cost, it was worth it. The assault force gathered at the edge of the Abyss Nebula. 12 ships, 6 human and 6 Thalosian, prepared for what everyone knew would be a one-way trip. 3,000 souls had volunteered. Not one had been forced. Commander Yuna stood on her flagship's bridge next to Lieutenant Hana, a human tactical officer who had become something close to a friend over the past weeks. Together they had planned every detail of the assault. The nebula will hide us until we're close, Hana explained, pointing at the tactical display. But once we exit, we'll have maybe 10 minutes before the entire Harvester fleet responds. 10 minutes to reach the mothership, breach its hull, get inside, plant the device, and get out. You're saying that like getting out is possible, Yuna said quietly. Hana smiled sadly. Optimism is a human trait, sometimes a foolish one. On the human flagship, Admiral Jiwon addressed both human and Thalosian crews over the ship-wide comm. This is Admiral Jiwon. In a few hours, we're going to do something that seems impossible. We're going to hurt these machines badly. Some of us won't come home. Maybe none of us will. But because of what we do today, the refugees will have time to escape. The galaxy will have time to prepare. Future generations will have a chance to live. That's worth everything we're about to pay. In the human marine bay, Specialist Taewon checked his equipment one last time. His squad of 20 Marines would be the assault team that entered the mothership. They would fight through Harvester drones, reach the central core, and plant the jamming device. A young Thalosian soldier named Nari approached him. She had been assigned to his squad after proving herself in combat. Specialist Taewon, I want to say something before we go. Thank you for everything humans have done. I never expected to find people like you in the galaxy. Taewon adjusted his armor and smiled. We're not special, Nari. We're just doing what anyone should do. Though I'll admit humans are stubborn. When we decide to do something, we commit completely, even when it's stupid. This isn't stupid, Nari said firmly. This is the bravest thing I've ever seen. On another ship, Elder Jisoo, the oldest living Thalosian, was recording a message. He had volunteered for the assault despite his age. He spoke slowly into the camera. I am 300 years old. I have seen our civilization rise and fall. I thought I understood courage, but these humans have taught me something new. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're terrified. If we die today, we die standing beside the bravest people in the galaxy. Technician Minji, a human engineer, was making final adjustments to the jamming device in the ship's cargo bay. It was a crude-looking piece of equipment, cobbled together from human and Thalosian technology. But it would work. Probably. There's one problem, Minji said to the gathered officers. The timer mechanism is unreliable. In the mothership's environment, with all that interference, it might not trigger automatically. Someone might need to detonate it manually. Everyone understood what that meant. Manual detonation meant someone stayed behind. Someone died for certain. "I've made one modification, though," Minji continued. "I've added a remote trigger as a backup. If you can get far enough away, you can trigger it remotely. It's not much of a chance, but it's something." "How far is far enough?" Commander Yuna asked. 2 kilometers, Minji said. "You'd need to run very fast." The fleet entered the nebula. Sensors were nearly blind in the thick clouds of gas and dust. Navigation was done by dead reckoning and hope. They moved slowly, silently, like predators stalking prey. Captain Hyun sat in her command chair, running through scenarios in her head. She had fought in battles before, but never anything like this. Never against an enemy this powerful, never with stakes this high. On the crew decks, humans and Thalosians prepared together. They shared stories, exchanged small gifts, and made promises to remember each other. A human pilot gave his lucky coin to a Thalosian pilot. A Thalosian soldier taught a human marine a prayer from her homeworld. Different species, different cultures, united by common purpose. Dr. Minho had remained with the refugee fleet, caring for the wounded and sick. But before the assault fleet left, he had hugged Commander Yuna tightly. "Come back," he had whispered. "Bora needs you. We all need you." Young Bora had given Yuna a small stone, blue like Thalosian scales. "For luck," the child had said, "so you remember to come home." Yuna kept the stone in her pocket now, touching it occasionally. The fleet emerged from the nebula directly in front of the Harvester mothership. It was enormous, 5 times the size of the largest ship in the assault force. Its hull was covered in weapons and docking bays. Harvester drones poured out like insects from a nest. "All ships attack pattern Delta," Admiral Ji-won commanded. "Clear a path for the assault team." The 12 ships opened fire simultaneously. Human railguns and Thalosian plasma cannons lit up the darkness. Harvester shields flared and failed under the concentrated assault. The assault force pushed forward, taking damage but refusing to stop. "Breach achieved," Hana reported. "Assault team, you're clear to launch." Specialist Taewon's team launched from their ship in armored drop pods. They slammed into the mothership's interior, cutting through bulkheads with plasma torches. Nari was right beside Taewon, her weapon firing as Harvester drones converged on their position. The interior of the mothership was a maze of machinery and corridors. Everything was designed for efficiency, not for organic life. The temperature was freezing. The atmosphere was toxic. The assault team's suits protected them, but barely. "Forward!" Taewon shouted. "Don't stop moving. If we slow down, we're dead." They fought through corridor after corridor. Harvester drones attacked from every direction. The team's numbers began to drop. 15 Marines became 12. 12 became 9. Outside, the assault fleet was being torn apart. One human ship exploded. Then a Thalosian ship lost its engines and began drifting. Admiral Ji-won's flagship took a direct hit that killed a third of its crew. "Admiral, we need to retreat," someone shouted. "Not until the assault team completes their mission," Ji-won replied, blood running down her face from a head wound. "Hold position." Inside the mothership, the assault team reached the central core. It was a massive chamber filled with processing units and control systems. This was the brain of the Harvester fleet. "Plant the device," Taewon ordered. "Minji, where does it go?" Following the engineer's instructions, they placed the jamming device against the central processor. Taewon activated it and started the timer. 10 minutes until detonation. "Move! Everyone move!" he shouted. They ran back the way they came. Harvester drones pursued them in greater numbers. The machines knew something was wrong. They were trying to stop the intruders from escaping. 9 Marines became 7. 7 became 5. They reached the breach point where they had entered. Their extraction ship was waiting, engines running. 4 Marines made it aboard. Taewon turned and saw Nari behind him, firing at a wave of approaching drones. "Nari, come on!" he shouted. "The timer!" she yelled back. "It's malfunctioning. I can see the device from here. The display is flashing red." Taewon's blood went cold. The jamming device wasn't going to detonate automatically. Someone would need to stay and trigger it manually. He started moving back toward her. "Then we'll both stay and trigger it!" Nari grabbed him and physically threw him toward the ship with Thalosian strength. "No! You humans have sacrificed enough. It's time for us to show what you taught us." She turned and ran back into the mothership before he could stop her. The extraction ship's pilot, seeing what was happening, sealed the door. "I'm sorry, Specialist. I can't wait any longer. The ship's taking too much damage." Taewon watched through the viewport as the ship pulled away. Inside the mothership, he could see Nari on the security cameras, fighting her way back to the central core. She was alone, surrounded by drones, but she kept moving. The assault fleet began to retreat. They had done everything they could. Now it was up to Nari. She reached the jamming device. Drones were closing in from every direction. She placed her hand on the manual detonator and looked up at the security camera. Somehow, she knew humans were watching. She smiled. It was the human gesture she had learned, a smile of peace, of acceptance, of courage. "Tell my people," she said clearly into the comm system that was somehow still working. "Tell them we learned what it means to be brave. Tell them the humans showed us. Tell them it was an honor to stand beside you." Then she pressed the detonator. The explosion was massive. The mothership's core detonated, creating a chain reaction that spread throughout the vessel. The jamming signal disrupted every harvester drone in the system. They stopped moving, confused, vulnerable. "All ships," Admiral Jiwon commanded, tears streaming down her face. "Fire everything, for Nari, for all of them." The remaining assault ships opened fire on the helpless harvester fleet. Without coordination, without the mothership's commands, the enemy was just metal and circuits. One by one, the harvester ships were destroyed. Commander Yuna stood on her bridge, holding Bora's blue stone. She was crying. Human and Thalosian crew members around her were crying too. They had won. But the cost had been terrible. Of the 3,000 who had started the assault, only 847 returned. Among them was Specialist Taewon, who would carry Nari's memory for the rest of his life. The silence after the battle was worse than the noise during it. Commander Yuna walked through her ship's corridors, past empty stations where friends had worked. She carried a list in her hand. Names. So many names. The Harvester mothership was destroyed. Without its coordination signal, the remaining Harvester drones had become confused and were easily eliminated by Coalition forces who finally arrived after the danger had passed. The threat was over, but the price had been terrible. 847 survivors from 3,000 who had started the assault. The numbers haunted Yuna. It was the same number as the millions of refugees they had saved. Was that coincidence or fate? She didn't know. Captain Yun found her in an observation room, staring at the stars. The human captain had bandages on her arms and a healing cut across her face. "Commander, we're preparing to move the refugee fleet to the sanctuary sector. The Coalition has agreed to let your people settle there." "After we did their work for them," Yuna said bitterly. "Where were they when we needed help? Where were they when humans were dying?" "They were afraid," Hyun said quietly. "Fear makes people selfish, but maybe watching us will teach them something." The journey to the sanctuary sector took 2 weeks. During that time, the survivors tried to process what had happened. Specialist Taewon spent hours in the medical bay, recovering from his wounds. He had lost his left arm and right leg in the final extraction. Dr. Minho, who had come to the fleet to help with the wounded, worked personally on fitting him with prosthetics. "You'll walk again," Minho said gently. "Maybe not like before, but you'll walk." "I should have stayed with her," Taewon said, his voice empty. "Nari shouldn't have died alone." She didn't die alone, Minho replied. She died knowing what she did mattered. That's something most people never get. She saved millions. She'll never be forgotten. The Galactic Coalition held an emergency session. They offered humanity a permanent seat on the High Council, with full voting rights and increased territory. It was the highest honor the Coalition could give. Admiral Jiwan attended the ceremony. She wore her dress uniform, every medal she had earned displayed. When offered the seat, she stood before the entire council and spoke clearly. We appreciate the offer, but we must decline. We didn't fight the harvesters for power or territory. We fought because people were dying and no one else would help them. If we accept this seat as a reward for basic compassion, we send a terrible message that helping others is something you do for profit, not because it's right. The council chambers were completely silent. However, Jiwan continued, we will remember which species helped and which didn't. We'll remember who came after the danger passed. And we'll make sure the whole galaxy remembers too. Not as a threat, but as a lesson. Because the next time someone calls for help, maybe more people will answer. She saluted and left. Behind her, council members looked at each other with shame and discomfort. The refugee fleet arrived at the sanctuary sector. It was a beautiful region with 3 habitable planets and abundant resources. The Thalosians could rebuild here. They could have a future. Commander Yuna stood on the surface of what would become New Thalos, the new homeworld. Beside her stood Ambassador Deho, who had survived the assault. Around them, Thalosian families were already setting up temporary shelters and beginning the long process of rebuilding. We should build a memorial, Deho said, for everyone we lost, human and Thalosian together. Yes, Yuna agreed. Every name. Everyone who gave everything so others could live. Construction of the memorial took 6 months. It was built on a hill overlooking the new capital city. 2 walls stood side by side, one listing human names and one listing Thalosian names. In the center, an inscription in both languages. When we called for help, they answered. Their courage will never be forgotten. The dedication ceremony was attended by thousands. Admiral Jiwan came from Earth. Dr. Minho brought young Bora, who placed flowers at the base of the memorial. Specialist Taewon walked slowly on his new prosthetic legs to the wall and placed his hand on Nari's name. Admiral Jiwan spoke to the crowd. We honor the dead by living lives worthy of their sacrifice. They died so others could have a future. Let's make sure that future is worth what they paid. 5 years passed. The Thalosian civilization rebuilt stronger than before. Their ships now incorporated human design philosophy. Their military trained with human tactics. Their culture had absorbed lessons about courage and sacrifice. Commander Yuna had become Admiral Yuna, the Thalosian ambassador to humanity. She spent half her time on Earth, helping forge closer bonds between their species. She had learned to appreciate human coffee, human music, and human humor. Dr. Minho had formally adopted Bora after discovering she had no living relatives. The girl was 12 now, attending school on Earth and New Thalos both. She spoke perfect English and Thalosian. She wanted to be a doctor like her adopted father. One day, a new crisis emerged. The Keltharan species faced extinction from a stellar collapse. Their sun was dying faster than predicted. They had only months to evacuate their entire civilization. They sent desperate calls for help to the Coalition. The Coalition met to discuss the situation. Before they could debate and delay, the Thalosian delegation stood up. Admiral Yuna spoke clearly. The humans taught us something important. When someone calls for help, you answer. You don't debate. You don't calculate costs and benefits. You answer. The Thalosian fleet will respond to the Keltharan distress call. Who will join us? Admiral Jiwan, representing humanity, stood immediately. Earth's fleet stands with Thalos, always. One by one, other species stood. The Vrelians, the Korthan, Even species who had refused to help the Thalosians 5 years ago. They had learned. They had seen what compassion looked like. They wouldn't turn away again. The rescue of the Keltheran people took 4 months. It was dangerous and expensive. 300 ships were lost, but 6 billion Keltherans were saved. Every single one. The Keltheran ambassador came to New Thalos after the rescue. She stood before Admiral Una with tears in her strange, compound eyes. "Why did you help us? What do we owe you?" Una smiled. It was a gesture she had learned from humans. "You owe us nothing, but someday someone else will need help. When that day comes, remember what we did for you, and answer their call. That's how you repay this debt, by paying it forward." 10 years after the Harvester War, Captain Hyun retired from active service. She attended a ceremony on Earth where a new generation of officers received their commissions, young men and women, human and alien, standing together in uniform. One young human officer approached her nervously. "Captain Hyun, I wanted to tell you something. My mother served under you during the Harvester War. She died in the assault on the mothership, but before she deployed, she sent me a message. She said she was proud to serve beside you, proud to fight for something bigger than herself. That message inspired me to join the fleet." Hyan felt tears in her eyes. "What was your mother's name?" "Lieutenant Hana," the young officer said. "She was a tactical officer." Hyun remembered, the woman who had planned the assault with Commander Una, who had died when the command ship took a direct hit. "Your mother was one of the bravest people I ever knew. She would be proud of you." "I hope so," the young officer said. "I want to live up to what she and the others started. The galaxy is different now because of them. Better." 100 years after the Harvester War, the Galactic Coalition was dissolved. It was replaced by the Mutual Defense Alliance, an organization built on different principles. When any member species faced extinction or disaster, all members responded. No debates, no delays, just action. The highest military honor in known space was called the Promise Keeper Medal. It was created by humans, but awarded by all species. It went to those who answered the call for help without hesitation, who put others before themselves. The first recipient had been Captain Nari, awarded posthumously. Her image was on the medal itself, a Thalosian soldier smiling with courage and peace. Young Bora, now Dr. Bora, taught xenobiology at the University of New Thalos. She was 50 years old, with children of her own. She told her students the story every year on the anniversary of the Harvester War. "My people were dying," she said. "The galaxy turned away. But humans answered. They didn't ask what we could pay. They didn't calculate the cost. They just came. And they kept coming, even as they died, because they believed something important. That when someone needs help, you help them. That's all." A young student raised their hand. "Professor, why did humans care so much? What made them different?" Bora thought carefully before answering. "Humans aren't different. Not really. They just remembered something the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. They remembered what it's like to be weak and afraid. They remembered what it's like when no one helps. And they promised themselves they would never be the ones who turned away. That promise changed everything." On Earth, in the Museum of Galactic History, there was an exhibit dedicated to the Harvester War. Visitors from hundreds of species came to see it, to read the names on the memorial wall replica, to understand what had happened. The final display was a simple hologram. It showed the moment when Captain Hyun had first responded to the Thalosian distress call. Her words were displayed in every known language. "This is the UHSF Indomitable. We're on our way. Hold position and transmit your tactical data. No one gets left behind." Below the hologram, an inscription. "We asked the humans for help and they did not refuse us. They came with weapons and medicine, with courage and compassion. They died beside us. They bled beside us. And they taught us what it means to be brave. The galaxy is forever changed. Not because humans were special, but because they remembered something simple. When someone calls for help, you answer. Always. Admiral Yuna, now ancient and gray-scaled, visited the memorial on New Thalos one last time before she died. She touched the names on the wall, human and Thalosian together. She thought of Captain Hyun, who had become her closest friend, of Nari, who had learned courage from humans and used it to save millions, of all the ones who had given everything. "Thank you," she whispered to the names. "Thank you for showing us. Thank you for answering when we called." The wind carried her words across the memorial grounds, where Thalosian and human children played together, not knowing they were playing on sacred ground, not knowing they lived in a galaxy that had learned compassion from the ones who had died to teach it. The story that began with desperation had become legend. The words that had been spoken in fear were now spoken with pride. We asked the humans for help, and they did not refuse us. And because of that answer, because of that refusal to turn away, the galaxy would never be the same. Somewhere in deep space, a new species encountered disaster. Their distress call went out across the stars, and this time hundreds of species answered together, all of them remembering the lesson, all of them keeping the promise. The human legacy lived on.